If you got the last, we're gonna finish those up. I've got a few extras for the tables if you did not. Brings back, I don't have enough for everybody. Have to do this table. Okay. Yeah. To kind of piggyback on, I think I shared that story last week about what you were referring to. I must have shared that to the whole group, maybe. But when I was a teacher at a Christian high school, we had a leadership guy come in for the day, and we had to do like this one exercise where we sat in a circle, and then people stood around. Then so like half of us were sitting in the circle, half stood behind somebody in the circle, and then he said, "What do you wish your parents had told you more of?" Just like a phrase, you know, what's something you wish you heard more of from your mother or your father? And then those who were sitting down would close their eyes, and the person behind us whispered that into our ear, and then moved. Then they kept moving, and then they whispered the next person. So you hear then everybody whispering this into your ear, right? And the two phrases that got repeated over and over again, by Christian teachers, was "I love you" and "I'm proud of you." And it was like, it was really like, it was weird to hear. I was not expecting that, but these people that are influencing our kids and all that, so like Christians, probably had Christian parents, wish that they heard their parents tell them, "I love you and I'm proud of you," more. And then when I was talking to my host, you know, and she was talking about this need for striving for perfection in these kids, that just came to my mind again. And so that's what we said to them the last day was, you know, "Hey, we love you and we're proud of you." And so just use that, you know, they seem to hear that from you is the biggest thing that you can do when you're over there. So continuing on with where we were at last week, I'm going to share kind of their belief in the pre-life and then in the afterlife, and then some tips to witness to Mormons. And so the pre-life, and we ended last week saying that they believe they can become gods, right? And so where are they getting all this idea from? Before you come to earth, you are a spirit child, and so you already have a pre-existence. Now you go through this veil when you become a baby on earth, and you forget. Like I can call it veil of darkness. Maybe you forget that pre-life, right? So that's why we don't realize that we were spirit children before this. And it's interesting. I watched they have, like, we have church plays and stuff. They've got Mormon church plays, and there was this one that I had some students that were, their family was Mormon, so they gave me this video of that. We watched it in our class, and they're all these like teenagers that are spirit children, and they're going to go down and get spirit or physical bodies, and they're worried, you know, like there's this one dating couple, like, are we going to know each other? Are we going to love each other? You know, are we going to meet again on earth? And one that's more of a nerd, and like, oh, am I going to be a nerd on earth? And they're all worried about what their next life's going to be like when they come to earth. It's a really interesting movie, but play. And but yeah, so they have this pre-life. Now, before, like, Jesus was the first spirit child, Lucifer was the second one, and when God was having the first group of spirit children, he was designing earth. He was wondering, how should we make earth? You know, should mankind have free will and all this kind of stuff, right? Lucifer had one idea on that, and Jesus had another idea, and a third of the spirit children sided with Jesus. God chose Jesus. The Father chose Jesus, his plan, and Satan rebelled. And so a third of the spirit children sided with Jesus, and a third sided with Lucifer, and a third were neutral. And so they didn't fight in the war. And there's this great war in heaven. Or on Kolon. And so the third decided with Jesus, they won, and God blessed them with white skin and physical bodies. So you got to come to earth and be white. And then the third that sided with Lucifer, they were destined to not have bodies. They couldn't get a physical body. They would be spirits forever. And that meant that you couldn't become a god, because in order to become a god, you have to come to earth and have a physical body and be tested. And so if you don't have that opportunity, you can never become a god. So that was their fate. The third that were neutral, they had a chance to come to earth and have physical bodies, but they would have the curse of being black, right? It is amazing that anybody of any other race than white would be a Mormon. But there are lots of different races within Mormonism. So that's kind of how they explain that. So the American Indians we talked about last week came about because of the Lamanites and Nephites in America and stuff, and the curse that they had of darker skin. There's just a lot of racism in the Mormon church in their history. Right? They're trying to get away from that now, but that is in their history. So that's the pre-existence. So you're a spirit child, then you come to earth, you get tested, and you could then have go to one of three places or four places when you die. And so there's three kingdoms of heaven. When I talk about heaven, it means three different things. It could be the telestial kingdom, the terrestrial kingdom, and the celestial kingdom. Those are all kingdoms, right? And then there's the outer darkness, which is not part of heaven. All right. So when we talk about people going to hell in the Bible, hell, there's right now a hell, there's a temporary hell, and then there's going to be a permanent hell. And so bad people are going to go to hell. But when in Revelation, when it says that hell, or Hades, it says, gave up its dead, then some of those will go to the celestial kingdom. A lot of the bad people that people that are like in habitual sin, kind of things like that, and haven't regenerated, haven't given their life over to the Lord, they're going to go here. But really, really bad people will go here to the outer darkness. That would be Satan and his minions and apostates. If you leave the Mormon church, you're going to go in the outer darkness. That's permanent hell. The celestial kingdom is still heaven. It's just the lowest kingdom of heaven. So it's really not that bad. There's really not a whole lot of advantage to being a good Mormon, unless you just really want to rule your own planet. This is bad people. This is for really bad people. Like Hitler wouldn't go there, they'd say. And then the terrestrial kingdom is for decent people, but non-Mormons. So those of us here, we go to the terrestrial kingdom, and it's higher than the celestial. It's better. It's where we get the word earth from, right? Terrestrial. So it's a good place to go. And then the celestial kingdom, within that there are three levels, right? And the top level is where you become gods. And so that is for married Mormons who have been sealed in the temple and have proven their worthiness. We'll talk about what the worthiness is. They get to go that one. we're gonna have on these three here. Okay, so these are like good Mormons, but not good enough. They haven't done everything to become, they haven't proven their worthiness and stuff. Maybe they're not sealed in the temple and stuff like that. And then single Mormons are in the lower kingdom. So according to that, I've asked them the question, where would Jesus be? Jesus wouldn't even make it to the top kingdom, to the top level of the celestial kingdom. But they say he's become a god. So they don't have a great answer for that. I've heard different answers. And where's the Holy Spirit? He didn't have a body. They don't have a good answer for that. It's either some queries you could ask, just trying to innocently find out and placing doubt in their minds. Any questions on that? Or comments from Jason and Drew, additions or anything like that, or corrections?
I think you're nailing it. I mean, I think it's just a system that's built on eternal progression, and you're always working so hard here on earth to try to get to the next level. But then they always kind of have that caveat too of, well, if you don't get all the way in this life, you can still work for it in eternity. And so that's where they're kind of feeling like, yeah, you're going to continue to progress even after this life. And then they do proxy work too, like baptisms for the dead, sealings for the dead. They do a lot of that stuff in the temple to where they can kind of help people make up for lost opportunity when they were here on the earth. And so yeah, it's a very works-based, achievement-oriented. It's like the American dream, but for eternity. Like you get out of it, what you put into it. So why wouldn't you want to work your butt off? Because you get the reward in the end. It's all about you. And but the flip side of that, though, is that there's no grace, there's no peace. How do you know if you've done enough? Are you going to go into eternity thinking, man, with regret? And so it's an exhausting system that is strife with insecurity and just a lot of craziness. So kind of paints the backdrop a little bit.
We just to piggyback on that, Jason, we had a good neighbor family of ours that his brother actually just committed suicide in the last year. And it's a very strong Mormon family, but he actually wasn't living the Mormon lifestyle. And I don't know if he actually believed the church. And so anyways, they just had a post on Facebook last week, and the entire family met at the temple up in Salt Lake, and they did the proxy work, like you were saying. They did all the baptisms for Ben, who passed away, and they made some comment about how they just feel so much peace now that he's in a better place after doing that work for him. And so that's not unusual at all, and it's something that they use, I think, to find consolation, I guess, in losing people. But definitely, like you said, that work after death continues. So,
cool. And that at least like a good question. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard it. I can't remember the Christian philosopher who came up with this, but kind of like if I'm wrong as a Christian, right? What do I have to lose, right? But if you're wrong, you eternity, right? To lose, you say that to a non-Christian, right? It's even more, I think, better applying it to Mormons, because like if I don't choose Mormonism, what do I got to lose? As Jason said, you can keep working your way up afterwards, but if they're wrong, then they've got eternity to lose, right? And so question that could be asked the right time with the right person, and after you've talked for a while. But they alluded to this. Some of the things that you have to do to prove your worthiness. There's more than this, but there are 5 kind of key big things. You got to be a Mormon. If you're not LDS, you can't be worthy enough, obviously, to become a God. You got to tithe 10% regularly. You're not giving 10%, and they check you on that. And so, if you want to get into the temple to get a temple recommend, your leader at your church has to write this for you. It's recommend so that you can go into the temple. Not every Mormon gets to go into the temple, and so they check to see if you've given 10% of your income. They know what your income is, and you get to give them 10%. We might need to apply that here at our churches. I think third, you got to be involved with temple works, which includes the baptizing of the dead that they referred to. And you'll see that when you go into the temple. I think in the model there, they've got this big old brass bowl that you stand in to do this, with oxen coming out of it and symbolic and all this kind of stuff. And you go into the temple and you get baptized for dead people. This is why genealogy work is really big in the Mormon Church. A lot of these genealogical sites and stuff like that are sponsored by the Mormons, because you want to go back and look at who your ancestors were and were they in the LDS Church or not, and you get baptized for them in their place. 1 Corinthians 15, it talks about that. Paul said, if Christ is not raised from the dead, why do they baptize for the dead?
For their own belief.
Right? And so there is a verse about it in the Bible. We think it is really weird, but they've got it. We don't have a great answer for that. I don't know if you guys come up with a great answer for that. Paul's not saying in there, he's not endorsing necessarily baptizing for the dead. He talks about they. He didn't say why do we baptize for the dead? He says, why do they baptize for the dead? He's probably talking about the hypocrisy of the people that are saying there's no resurrection, yet they're doing this kind of a weird practice of baptizing for the dead. But it is in 1 Corinthians 15. And fourth, you got to attend your ward regularly. So attend your church or ward regularly. And so the brick churches with the spires on them that are like, you'll see them on every block, right? It seems like in Utah, the ones that you'll see like Newton's got one, right? And those are just churches. They're wards, and the wards actually is 200 people about who they divide up. So geographically, they section you off. If you live in this area, this is your time. This is your ward. This is your time to go to the church. And so there will be different church services, and you go at your time, and based on your location and stuff. It's all regulated like that. And the Mormon missionaries, their job is not just to convert the lost, but it's actually to go to your house if you're a Mormon and missed church. They go and talk to you about what you missed that Sunday. So we think they're just always trying to convert people, but they have more work to do than that, just us. And then fifth, you got to be married to another good Mormon and in the temple. So they'll get married outside the temple, but your marriage isn't sealed for eternity, and so you can't become a god unless you get married in the temple. And in order to do that, you've got to, temple recommend, you got to be tithing regularly, get to your church regularly. So only 10% of Mormons actually do that. But most Mormons aren't even able to make it to the God status when they die. So that's kind of some of that. Big question I've asked a lot of people when we went through the temple. We went through. There's like one room where you can go, and they have a video thing. You have to get the missionaries to guide you through this, but make sure when you go through the temple, you find a missionary who will take you through this video series, and you go from one room to the next, and it's all about family and how your family can be together forever. That's big. When the Mormon missionaries, if you have a Mormon missionary come to your house, one of the first things they'll talk to you about is don't you want to be together forever for eternity with your family? And some people would say no. I don't but they're really big on that. And so we went through this whole thing, and then we asked the missionaries afterwards in Q&A time, like, how does it, because they don't really explain it to you in that. They're real crafty about it. And they talking about being sealed in the temple. So we started asking more questions about that. But like also big question is, okay, so if I become a god and can rule my own planet with my wife, right, and have spirit children and be God, like our God here, but on a different planet, and families stay together forever, well, then what about my parents, right? If I'm going to rule my planet, but my parents have their own planet, how are we together? And then what about my kids? If they become gods, they're not going to be staying together with me. They're going to be ruling their own. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and they don't have an answer for that. They'll throw different theories out there because there's nothing in their doctrine that tells how to explain that. They've got theories of like, well, you can just maybe like visit. Yeah. You can move quickly from one planet to another, and stuff. But, so those are fair questions to ask and get them thinking about, is this really logical? How does this work? So that leads into some tips for witnessing to Mormons. Again, a lot of the stuff you're not going to be doing because you're not there to do all of this, but there is still some of this that will be things you could do and apply as well. But one thing is important for us to do is understand the Mormon dilemma. What we mean by that is that how hard would it be for somebody to convince you to leave your faith? I mean, I asked a group of high schoolers when I was teaching Sunday school, I asked them this, if I could prove to you that Jesus never existed, didn't die on the cross for your sins, would you leave Christianity? Every one of them, except fortunately my younger brother, every one of them said, no, I would not leave Christianity. They thought that was the right answer, And I said, you're stupid. I didn't use that word, but you're foolish. Why would you stay in something that you know is not true? You're going to stay in a religion that I've proven to you is false, and you're going to still stay in it? I mean, think about how hard it would be to leave Christianity. We've grown up in it. We believed it. We've had our parents have taught this to us, and we've got experiences. Somebody come into here and just like point out, like how silly it is for a giant like Goliath, and David defied him, and like point out some of the things in the Bible that they really part of the Red Sea. I mean, come on, they walked on dry land. You really believe that, right? And he said, you've got reason. You're gonna say, well, we may not understand this. We may not understand the Trinity. We may not understand, but I've got faith. And lots of Christians say, I don't understand it, but I believe by faith, right? How hard would it be to take a Mormon out of their faith, out of their culture? And even more so, they've got more risk, because if they leave, outer darkness, if that's right, their family will leave them, disown them. I mean, they are going to be disowned by everybody. Whereas if you left the faith, we're still going to love you. We're going to still be reaching out to you. We're not going to shun you, right? So they've got everything to lose. So understand the Mormon dilemma is not easy. Like, I'll just go tell them a few things and like show them how stupid this is, and then they'll come out. It's way more difficult than that, which is why we got Drew and Jason over there on the ground and doing the hard work, being there long term. That's what needs to happen. Prayer, we've talked about preparing by prayer. 3, get to know a Mormon at a personal level. That is just really, that's what you're here to do, is to build bridges. That's what's going to really cause them to think differently. As they start to say, these Christian people, they're coming out here and they're serving, they're giving up their summer, they're giving up their vacation time, and they're, to love on our kids. What? This doesn't make sense. I thought we were the loving people. We're Mormons. We're supposed to be good. We're doing it. These Christians are doing that. That's going to cause them to really wonder if maybe we don't have all the truth. Maybe those Christians do have something. And so That is keep getting on a personal level and loving on them. Encourage an examination of beliefs. You know, if they say, you know, like, oh, you're just trying to persecute us, you know, you can use 2 Corinthians 13:5 or the Doctrine and Covenants 771, 7 through 11, where it encourages us to examine our beliefs. You know, say, hey, we're not trying to persecute you. It's good to test what we believe. You know, if I believe something wrong, I want to know that it's wrong. Right? So let's talk about this. 5, be kind and gentle, but you got to be firm. If I gave you on the next sheet a couple dialogue. The first page is a sample one that I made that we'll go through here in a second. And then the second one is on Mormon.org, a chat that I have, the missionary on there. And, you know, I've raised questions and say, oh, that's awesome. That is just awesome. Yeah, I love that you're thinking. And they'll move on to something else. They won't answer my question, right? And so they'll say that, you know, you throw out a hard question, that is just really, that is great. I just love that you're thinking like that, you know, and then they'll move to something else. It's more comfortable for them to talk about. So you've got to be firm with them, like, but loving and gentle. But no, you know, can you answer this question? We'll go through that here in a second. 6, don't assume all Mormons have the same beliefs. So ask them questions. Ask. Don't just assume. Just like all Christians, you wouldn't assume that all Christians believe the same thing. So people do believe that we all believe the same thing. 7, don't tell them what he or she believes, goes along with that. 8, define terms carefully. When they talk about grace, my twin brother took a class at Biola on Mormonism, on the cults, and they spent a long time on Mormonism, and then they had to go and spend time with missionaries. So they had to call missionaries and arrange a time to meet with them. And they did that. They'd been studying Mormonism, and then they meet with these missionaries, and they came away from that saying, I'm not sure we were taught the right things, because I said, you know, salvation is by grace, and they said, we believe that too. Like, wait. Well, I was told that you don't believe that, right? But it's the question, what do they mean by salvation by grace? Yeah. And if you press them on it, if you start to ask them more about that, you know, what they believe is that, yeah, we cannot on our own worthiness, reach the point of salvation. But we need to do everything that we can. And if we've done enough good stuff, we've done the best that we can, Jesus will take us the rest of the way. That's where the grace comes in. That's where Jesus' death helps out, right? But only if we've proven our worthiness to deserve the grace, right? And so it's not really salvation by grace. So you got to, you know, define terms carefully. Take your time with them, and you know, you're not going to just do all the ones. Disarm the Mormon testimony. They're going to have a testimony. You have a testimony. So give them your testimony. It's a powerful tool, right? And so if they give their testimony, you give your testimony and say, okay, those are our testimonies, those are our experiences. Now let's go back to examine the scriptures. Let's really find out, is salvation by faith or not, right? I had missionaries come to my house, and they gave me the Book of Mormon. They gave me a couple chapters from the Book of Mormon to read. They read this, pray about it, you know, in the whirlpool, and we'll give you a call. And I said, okay. So I took the Book of Mormon. I always take the Book of Mormon because that's just one less book that they've got out there, right? And it costs them money. So feel free to take them. Then I prayed about it. You know, I remember very distinctly reading those passages. One was copied from the James Version of the Bible, and prayed about them and said, God, you know what? I don't believe this is true, but if I've been deceived all my life, you know, show me that I'm wrong. And, you know, obviously nothing happened. So they call me and they say, hey, Brother Jeremy, did you read those scriptures? And I said, yes, I did. He said, oh, that's wonderful. That's great. That's awesome. And he says, did you pray about it? And I said, I prayed about it too. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. You know, what did the Spirit tell you? It's the Holy Ghost. And I said, well, God affirmed to me that what I believe is true and that Joseph Smith is not a true prophet and that the Mormon teaching is wrong. And like, well, okay, you just keep reading that, and they never called back. That's the way to end the conversation. That's not the best tactic. But you got a testimony. Use your testimony about what God's done in your life, and use only kingdom. We talked about that. Skip number 12 to ask leading questions. The book, what's it called? Reasoning from the Scriptures with Mormons. They give you leading questions to ask, and that goes through each chapter a different doctrine of their beliefs and questions to ask. So it's really helpful, really good. Disarm the attack accusation. They say, oh, you're attacking us. Well, I mean, you could say that they attacked us first because they said that we were apostates, we were false church, and Mormonism is the only true church. Joseph Smith was told not to join any church because they're all false. So really, you could say we were attacked first. We're defending ourselves. And I gave you that book. Here's a basic cheat sheet. We're not going to go through all these verses, of course, but that's something that you want to keep with you. Some verses on different topics, like that God is not a man. There's only one God. I like to focus on salvation by grace. And that's on the front of the page. There's the verses on faith and works, because that deals with salvation, and so you're getting talking about salvation. I'm going to leave this other with you. There's kind of like a worksheet type thing, but this first is the sample conversation of the animus for Mormon. So you talking, how you can ask questions with a Mormon and how they might respond. This is a made-up, fictitious conversation, but I don't give you the answers in here, and we didn't have time to go through the answers. So there is some evidence for these three kingdoms in the Bible, and how would you respond to them? If you're curious, you can ask me another time. Let's leave you with that. Actually, I'll just give you really quick. I can do this real fast. So Paul said, that he had a vision, and he was caught up into the highest, or the third heaven, right? And so they say, well, see, there's a third heaven. There's three. How do you deal with that? Well, when the Jewish people are talking about the third heaven, they're talking about heaven, like when we use the word heaven, that's what we're talking about. But heaven could also have, and has been used in Jewish scriptures, of the atmosphere is the first level of heaven, just the sky. The heavens declare the glory of God. And of the cosmos, level, and then outer space, and then the third level of heaven would be where God is. And that's the answer to that one. And then the other passage, there's one that talks about celestial bodies, or terrestrial bodies, and celestial bodies. So it actually uses those terms, celestial and terrestrial, right? And so isn't there evidence for those two kingdoms then? Let's talk about kingdoms, though. It's talking about terrestrial bodies and celestial bodies, and when we die, we get celestial bodies, heavenly bodies. But right now we have terrestrial bodies, we have our earthly bodies. It doesn't mention anything about celestial bodies, the first one, and it's not talking about kingdoms. So it doesn't mention three, it's only those two things. Then the Mormon chat, you can see how I chatted with the Mormon. And on the last page, some verses that deal with is Jesus God and faith and works. And that would be something you can go through on your own and look at verses that are helpful on
that. Jason and Drew, I might give you guys a little bit of time. I know that you just kind of your heart on how, I know you've mentioned before, just being sensitive to when we're coming, interactions, just as also representatives of Greenhouse, and like you're there full time, and just the relationships you guys are building and stuff like that. You guys mind sharing a little bit about that and just how interactions with people of the LDS faith, what that looks like, or what kind of expectations maybe or part of that maybe. So.
Drew, you want to go for it?
Sure. I think in general, you guys will find when you're out here, a lot of the people you'll meet and everything are open to having spiritual conversations, especially those that are in the Mormon church. And they usually come up pretty naturally. And so that's definitely something to remember as you're out there. Be willing to jump in and engage if you feel like the Lord leads you with that. But just as a general maybe rule of thumb too, and this is something I probably don't even have to say, but I'll say it anyways. Just go out there as an ambassador of Christ, and number one rule is just love them well. I think if we go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to go prove them wrong, I just challenge that mindset and go into it showing with the mindset rather of how can I be an ambassador of Christ and just love them and hear their story and get to know where they're at. And like you said, Jeremy, too, I think it's definitely great to hear their story and then also be able to share your story, to be able to share, what Christ has done in your life, I think is amazing. So just be looking for opportunities to tell people who Jesus is to you, before you jump into, well, this is what you guys believe and that's wrong. Don't go in just assuming you know everything about their faith and hoping to kind of derail that, but rather show them love, speak truth where you can, but ultimately just know that it takes a long time and it's a process. And so any seeds you can plant, great, as long as it's in a very loving, non-manipulative kind of way. So
Anything else to add, Jason?
Nate, check your texts there.
Okay, sounds good. No, you're good. That's awesome. We'll start there.
Yeah.
that's every day.
That's good. So,
Yeah, I reiterate what Drew says. I think just love and sensitivity is great.
Good. Well, we're gonna stop. Last time when we did prayer, we kind of did over this thing. Everything was starting to squeal and stuff like that. So we're gonna spend some time in prayer just to wrap up. So we'll kind of end the meeting on Zoom. But if you guys would also pray, we'd love to just kind of pray that way, but not over Zoom, so it's not squealing and stuff like that. But any specific requests, Drew? Guys, going into it, anything new from last week?
Yeah, a lot of the things we prayed about last week are great, and just Lord will be preparing all of our hearts. I know we all have a lot going on, but just that we would just continue to seek His direction and how He's preparing us in that. I think it's okay to say this, but we had a meeting last night as a greenhouse team, just something you can be praying about as well. The owners of the place where we meet for worship gatherings on Sundays, they're actually selling the yoga studio, the dance studio. And so we're currently kind of scrambling and praying into where the Lord might have us meet next. It could be there. It could be a lot of different options. And so just, again, trusting the Lord has something good in mind, but just that we would be faithful in following His leading on that. So a little bit of an unknown there. But again, just be praying for the kids that are signing up. I know each day we get a few more kids registered, and so just be lifting them up in advance as well.
Would you be able to send an update on like numbers where we're at for like specific sports and even VBS, just so we can have an idea of numbers and stuff like that? That might be nice for people to know that are in sports camp, kind of just expectations, where we're at and stuff. Could you do that?
Yeah,
Awesome.
You bet.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Drew. I appreciate your time and stuff like that. Thanks, Phil, for joining up with us and stuff. And then, we're going to spend some time in prayer. But we appreciate you guys and love you guys. And excited to see you soon, Drew.
Likewise, guys. All right. Thanks for everything.
Thanks. See you guys.
See you.